Alright, welcome to Uncle Joe's Workshop. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to learn some soldering, soldering 101, and in this process we're going to learn how to make a ring from a piece of wire. So that's our goal. Tools you're going to need today. We're going to need, first off, I'm going to need pliers, a couple sets of flat nose, flat nose pliers. I'm going to need solder. There's my solder wire. Down here I've got my flux for soldering. I've got a pickle solution for cleaning the metal and thermal shock. You'll need a brick to do the soldering on. If you don't have a brick, pumice, whatever works for you, wherever you can find. Of course, you need a blazer torch. I'm using a blazer butane torch. Works pretty well. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the solder itself. Okay, it's a good idea to clean your solder when you start. So just a little green pad, clean that. Take off any of the oils from your hand, and it takes off any oxidation that might be already on there. I want to cut a small piece of this, and you'll notice down here on the table right here I have a little bit of flux that I put there. There's actually another piece of solder in there. But when I go to cut this with my cutter, what I found is that I just need a piece of solder about as long as it is wide. And I'm going to cut this right over this little puddle. I do this so it catches it. And it bounced out again. Alright, maybe not. We'll use that one. Okay, we're good to go. Alright, so I have this piece of solder right here. And I can get it on the brush. And you can maneuver the solder just by moving around just like that. Okay? Now, I have it ready to go on the brush. In the meantime, I want to bend the ends of my wire around so that they come together just like this. And I don't want any gaps. If your wire is gapped at all, the solder will not fill a space. It's not made to fill. So you need to make sure all of these are tight together, and you can wind them around like this to line it up. Okay. If you're initially having trouble getting them together, I've found the best way is to start with pliers. And everybody's does it a little differently, but if I bend this around and make it come straight at me like that, turn it around, do the same thing. Okay, I can then bring these ends together and I get them lined up so that they're coming straight at each other. Once you get them close, you can go around in circles around each other, and then that should give it enough memory to hold it in place. There we go. And it's a little high on one side, so I'm going to just bend it back and forth until I'm really comfortable about how it's sitting. That looks a lot better. Okay. Good. Now, you notice I already have one set on the brick, so I'm ready to go. When you're placing this solder on a piece, maybe I'll do that for you now, just to show you. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and you can see what's going on. Alright, so you can see this one here. I'll put another one behind it. We can do two at the same time. And set that one on there. And then I'm going to add this solder to it. Now the solder's already I got flux in the brush. The solder's sticking on the end of the brush. I'm just going to set that right on there. Let's bring it around where you can see it one more time. Now it dropped down, it's touching the brick, but it's at the bottom edge. And the capillary action, when I heat that up, it'll pull it right up into that that little crevice. Now it's so minute, the edges are touching, so the wire's touching, but it'll fill any micro gaps, and that's the idea. Okay, so my next step right now is to begin heating this with a torch. And for that I'm going to zoom in a little more, and we'll do the first one. Maybe that'll focus, maybe not. There we go. Not really satisfied with how that camera is showing this. Okay, I'll make sure this is done right. Okay, I'm going to turn my torch on. Laser torches, you can adjust the flame, and I like a nice blue cone. And I want to heat evenly now around the wire. I'm not heating the solder, I'm going to heat the wire, and I'm going to slowly warm it up because I want to dry out any flux that's in there. Notice my torch is not getting close to the solder joint. And as that flux begins to dry up and become white, there it is. And when it becomes white like that, that is the flux drying out. And then that's holding your solder in place. So all you need to do now is continue heating the wire. Heat the wire evenly, and you can go around in circles. Don't stop moving your torch. Keep the torch moving the whole time. And it'll begin to heat up. Now, one of the things that'll keep your thing from soldering is dirty wire. Now the solder's balling up, it's flowing. I'm going to keep moving until I see it flatten out again. It's flattened out. Looks good. And that one's done. I'll do the other one while I'm here. I'll heat it up. Same thing. There we go. Let's get closer. There we go. And I'll begin heating this up, going around, drying out the solder, or the flux. The flux is drying up. The solder's down below. Now watch, the solder's going to ball up. It's going to jump up into that gap because it's at the bottom. You'll notice it down in there in the bottom. It's changing color. Wire's starting to get warm enough. And I got a nice color. It's starting to flow up. The solder's flowing. It's going up into the gap now. I'll go back and forth, make sure it's flattened out. Flattened out good. Okay, pull my torch away. And now both of those are soldered. So, let's go back to wide. And my next step is to get that into the pickle solution. When these are hot, because they're very hot, they're going to go into this solution, and the thermal shock will knock any discoloration off, hopefully. Okay. And you can leave them sit in a pickle for a few moments, and that works fine. So I'll pull one of these out. It's always a good idea to clean them off with a little bit of water, which I have. Okay, so I've rinsed it off. I've gotten the pickle solution off it. And now my next step is to make this into a ring. Okay, normally I'd go back to my workbench to show you this, but since we're already here, I'll do it right in front of you. Okay, get this set. Okay, first thing I want to do is I want to make this round. You can use your fingers. You can open it up a little bit. Okay, if it's not flat and level, you can set it on a block. Put your mallet on the top, hit the mallet gently with a hammer on the back, and that'll get it level and flat. This looks pretty level and flat already. So I'm going to put it right onto the ring mandrel. And I'm going to gently tap this. And as I tap it, it's going to increase its size because it's getting itself round again. Don't hit it too hard, just enough to get the shape. Now, if your ring's quite small, this is about a 9.5. It was a pretty long piece of wire. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a nice ring simply with a hammer. And it's going to increase the size. You can increase it up to about a half a size just with a hammer. And I'll facet the top of this with that hammer. I want to hit the same spot every time, right between my fingers. You can hit the solder joint as well. That won't hurt it. That actually strengthens the solder joint if you did a good job. Okay, I've gone all the way around. It's increased to about a size 10. Okay, it's a little large. That's okay. But it shows you how you can fasten it. Now I can go right to the polish machine and use a little Zam on this. I used a polish hammer, so it came out pretty clean. If you want to go back to bobbing and clean up the bobbing first, you're welcome to do that. It's up to you. One word of caution. If your wire is dirty when you start this process, sand it, clean it. Don't touch it with your fingers. Make sure you flux really well when you do the soldering. Okay, good luck.